In today's mission, we will be designing a Mars sample return mission in Kerbal Space Program. That is actually a Duna Sample return mission, including the design of the rover, the testing of aforementioned rover, assembling and stacking of the vehicle, launch, descent and orbital entry to Mars, driving on the surface of Mars with Parallax, erecting a Mars sample return Mars Ascent Vehicle that will be standing tall. Wait, where are you going? Boy, stand up! Okay, let's try that again. Erecting a proud Mars Ascent Vehicle that will be launching a Mars sample return, so then sending it off the Mars and hopefully getting it back to Kerbin. But let's get first things first. We need to research a couple more technology nodes. Experimental aerodynamics and experimental science. I don't think I will be needing that one, but I will need the advanced motors for the rover that we will be sending. And let's go into constructing first the return Mars Ascent Vehicle, or Duna Ascent Vehicle in our case. So that will be a tiny rocket that will be collecting all of our samples and then ejecting itself or launching itself from the surface of Duna and returning all the wonderful samples that will be going back to Kerbin in our case. Yeah, so as you can see, I'm designing this small, should be a rather small rocket. I'm thinking about 0.625, diameter. So you can tell here I'm putting all of the necessary, including the science containing capsule, the parachute, the antenna, so I can obviously control it, some batteries, so I don't run out of juice, a tiny heat shield that will help us survive that rigorous re-entry, and also then I will need I was thinking initially when I was designing this that I was going to place a docking port, and the reason for that being that I need a docking port because I was thinking to replicate one-for-one, a Mars sample return mission where I would basically use the Mars or Duna Ascent Vehicle, which is this tiny rocket, and get it all the way up into the orbit around Duna, where it would then rendezvous with another craft that would be picking up the samples and returning them back to Kerbin, as is currently proposed by the NASA ESA concept. And that one was supposed to be basically returning that, and then so here is me designing that interplanetary stage using the Nerva that would be going back from Duna to Kerbin and return that sample mission. And I was thinking something like along these lines for the Duna Ascent Vehicle. However, these engines look just too big and it's just really clunky, but I will nonetheless, at least I have an idea how much thrust to weight and how much delta V I can expect from such a vehicle. So let's see, battery, and we put a couple of solar panels, and we are looking at a roughly of 1200 meters per second of delta V for the return back to Kerbin. Now the return back to Kerbin usually takes between 5 to let's say 800-900, so I think it's pretty doable, and I will have this designed as a backup craft. So you can see this is, for example, the craft that I will be putting as a sub-assembly, because if I will be launching a mission to Duna, this would be a possible return vehicle. However, let's continue in terms of designing the actual ascent vehicle. So the vehicle that will be going up from the surface of Duna and into the orbit of Duna, and that needs to be a tiny rocket because it needs to be able to fit into the cargo bay of either a Mark II or a Mark III cargo bay, which I plan to put on a rover. So let's see. Oh, you have quite the beefy, actually, both delta V and thrust to weight, so maybe just this is enough. Maybe we don't need a Nerva stage to basically get us back from Kerbin. If I put on something like this, and I put in additional parachutes, then maybe I won't need a big-ass rocket to get us back from, Duna to Kerbin. Okay, let's place some lights to make it look nicer. Okay, that parachute placement is hideous. I gotta do something about that. Can I place these? No, I cannot, obviously. Oh, in that case, that means I will have to fix up... I'm gonna leave it like this. Then I'm gonna place 2 parachutes. Alright. 1900 meters per second at a thrust to weight of 3.19 for Duna. That's more than enough. I'm also designing this to have a docking port, so if anything goes wrong, I can ditch this ascent stage and still have the ability to rendezvous in orbit with Mars, or, you know, the vehicle that would be supposedly returning back. So, Duna Sample return with an ascent vehicle, and that has 1900, and that's more than enough to get us from the surface of Duna all the way up. So let's now talk the rover. I want to be designing the rover, and I was thinking initially that it might even be a crewed rover, but then again we need to think about something more practical, because this Mark II lander can doesn't really work. Or maybe I should just take the Mark III cockpit and make it into a rover. Yeah, no, but the point of this is to be actually autonomous. So, probe body it is. Then we're gonna put 2 batteries, because those batteries will need to be able to send the scientific data and return what we cannot, you know. So, okay, Mark III body. Then we're gonna put like big ass heat shield in front so that we can actually enter the Mars or Duna atmosphere. And then we can put in like this big cargo bay. And then we're gonna cram it with all the experiments that we can put. And then I need to place another of these. Good. That will be the body of our rover. I mean, it does feel a little bit big, doesn't it? This cargo bay is a little bit on the huge side. Let's see, if I put a clamp here, or a hinge, where I can put the rocket, so I actually like this alligator hinge better than this G32W hinge. Looks a little bit too big, and yeah, this is a longer one, so the rocket will have more clearance from the body of the rover. I think it's better. Okay, let's put a decoupler. Actually, should I put a coupler? I think I should put a stack separator, it's better. Alright, and then let's put this Duna Ascent Vehicle. See, that's the idea. Fold in. Oh, there's too much space. Okay, it doesn't take nearly as much space. Okay, let's put something shorter then. Would this fit? No, it would not. Okay, then I guess we need another section here, and yeah, this would suffice. Okay, so after some finicking with the various designs, I have decided to stick with the Mark III design, Mark III cargo bay, and I've actually decided to add 2 tiny boosters to this rocket because, well, simply because we can, and second is because there is plenty of room to actually place them here, so I figured might as well be adding those 2. See, small nose cones, and then we can actually put the 2 external fuel ducts to connect them. See? Easy peasy lemon squeezy. I mean, this looks pretty nice. So this should have more than enough delta V to get into the orbit of Duna. But we will be, of course, testing it first around Kerbin. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Now, it's time to place all the experiments that we will be conducting. Seismometer, mystery goo, gravioli, atmospheric sensors, temperature sensors. Is there anything else that we could cram in there? I don't think so. Okay, then we want to put the 2 RTGs which will be powering this thing. Remember, we have a lot of batteries, but we don't have infinite power, so we will need something like that. Then we need some antennas to obviously control the damn thing. Okay, they don't overlap with the heat shield, which is kind of important for me. And I've placed 2 of them for redundancy. You never know if one of them might get broken on atmospheric entry and whatnot, so I think it's just good choice. So, okay, we're gonna put 2 wheels in the mirror symmetry, then we're gonna put another Rover Max 3 wheels. They have differential steering, they don't have the actual steering, so that might be a little bit of tricky to control, but we'll give it a test. So yeah, alright, traction control, brakes, all those things look okay. Now let's talk, let's see, any other wheels that I could be placing on, maybe that have ability to turn. Not that I can think of. Okay, let's put the liquid fuel engines, because you never know if we need to land this rover like a sky crane or something. So I want to have it its own propulsion, or at least the ability to choose a landing spot if we can come above the Rockies or something. The idea for landing this rover is to use parachutes. First, heat shield, to slow us down to a good extent. Then we jettison the heat shield and we put in the chutes. First the drogue chutes and then the main chutes. And once we're done with them, then we will be using the chutes together with the engines to hopefully land as a sky crane. Okay, and now I'm testing the hinged, or the ability to, you know, launch the tiny Duna Ascent Vehicle, the Dove as it's called, and now we will be shortly conducting the test of rover. Let me just see that I have correctly placed everything. So yeah, while we're doing that, we might as well talk a little bit about Mars Sample Return mission, which is a proposed mission to collect rock and dust samples on Mars and return them to Earth. It's a really ambitious mission proposed by NASA and also the ESA, so it will be a collaboration. Initially it was supposed to be collaboration with Roscosmos, but that got dropped due to the current situation in the world. So let's talk about first things first. Let's talk about the testing of this rover. As you can tell, I'm testing the rover's ability to drive, including its differential steering, which is actually bugging me to no avail. Okay, it does turn left and right. Okay, good, now I understand. Okay, it can turn, although it's probably not gonna win any drifting contests. Right. Well, I guess for driving on the surface of Duna that would be enough. Okay, let's test other systems. Opening the cargo bay, good. Let's test the engines. Okay, I mean, obviously we at the thrust to weight ratio of 9.92, we won't be able to take off, but if we get around 1G, oh look, yeah, the ass is lifting. Okay, yep, good, which means it's not balanced. I'll need to balance it. Yeah, let's turn off the engines and let's test the tiny rocket. So there we go, look at it stand proud and tall. Control from here. Getting ready and launch. Oh look, it's a successful rocket. Alright, and it has a total of 3.7 thousand delta V. Oh, I mean, that's even enough to get us to surface, to orbit from Kerbin, let alone Duna. Okay, now we have to do some balancing act. We have to make sure that the rover is better. Now let's test its ability to ascend. Okay, we are at 0.92. I have deliberately jettisoned the heat shield because this is a test of the actual thruster's ability to keep things balanced and rover to ascend. Okay. Haha! Look at it go! Okay, now let's get into orbit and deploy the rocket. Yeah. No, I'm kidding. But I mean, in seriousness, this looks like a well enough balanced vehicle to me, so that at least I'm hoping that I will be able to retain some semblance of control in the atmosphere of Duna. Okay, now we have the parachutes, and obviously it's a little bit nose heavy. I mean, no arguments there. Let's see, yeah. Well, it is balanced when it's without the parachute, so I guess I'll just have to live with it, or just place more chutes. I would like not to make more chutes, but look, I can control it once I actually am using thrusters. So, yeah, that's the way I'm gonna do it. Alright. But overall, I'm pretty happy with it. Okay, let's continue. So, time to integrate it into our main rocket, or the main ascent vehicle that will be taking off from Kerbin and going all the way to Duna. As I said, I'm not replicating the Mars Sample Return mission, which I started to talk about, and I'm going to talk about it shortly. However, the idea of this being loosely inspired means that I will get this rover to the surface of Duna, find a nice landing spot, take some samples, and then return the rocket back. Now, right. Mars Sample Return mission. Yes, it's a proposed mission to collect rock and dust samples, and the scientific value of returning the actual Mars soil, we can do so many more tests here on Earth than we could theoretically do on Mars. On Mars, of course, we can shoot it with lasers, we can poke it, we can probe it, we can read temperature, we can read various different things. However, it still doesn't equate to the same. We have whole buildings here on Earth dedicated to ability to that you can analyze soil samples. Okay, so the difference with our mission and the Mars sample return mission is we are already sending the rover and the return vehicle all in one go. So we're basically sending everything there. It's gonna land, it's gonna do some science, and then it will launch the rocket to shoot the science back up to Kerbin. While the original Mars sample return mission was considered a multi-craft mission, it was considered that we have the Perseverance rover that is actually currently on the surface of Mars collecting all the data and collecting samples, and then there will be a Mars Ascent Vehicle that will be sent out separately, and the Perseverance would essentially go and dump its samples into the Mars Ascent Vehicle that would go up and shoot itself into the orbit of Mars, where it would rendezvous with another transfer vehicle that would take it back to Earth. We're not doing that, so that's why I'm saying this mission is loosely inspired by the Mars sample return. We're doing everything in one go. So we are assembling this giant Saturn V, ish looking rocket that will be basically sending all the stuff there, doing its stuff, and then coming back with hopefully a boatload of science and us looking really, really cool. So, right. Okay, I'm gonna put this 4 Clydesdale boosters because I think those will work pretty nicely. Now, time for the launch. There we go, our return mission, our rocket, yeah, let's call it a rocket. It's ascending up and it's going pretty nicely. The Clydesdale boosters are doing its job, and as you can see, I'm throttling down all the main engines because as we expand mass, our thrust to weight increases, meaning we're going faster and faster because we are lighter and lighter. So, this is all obviously 2 times accelerated for your benefit, and the solid rocket fuel motors are pretty much expanded, hitting the engine in full burn and ditching the boosters. Bye-bye boosters. Oh look, and they even stayed in the formation. Ain't that grand? Now, we are burning as usual for the 100-kilometer apoapsis, from which we will be transferring all the way to Duna. Note, I didn't set up any, Mars, Duna transfer windows or anything. I'm just going up for the 100-kilometer orbit because I realized in the stock KSP it actually is, I don't know, for me it doesn't just work here making this or transfer windows and then launching there and just using them, so I don't know. I figured out that this is actually simpler for me. So I just go up, I make oh, look at that fairing separation, and here is our rover. Yeah, ain't it cool? Alright. So, we will start the burn in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and doing the final correction. Oh, good, we almost hit that fairing. Whew! Okay, that was a close one. Alright. We have 700 meters per second to burn, which we're gonna do just about now. And we will be expanding this stage, so hopefully this stage will come back and crash on Kerbin, somewhere in the ocean perhaps. And there we go, circularizing on the transfer stage. Beautiful. Guys, honestly, I couldn't have done it better even if I measured the delta V. I didn't, just for the record. Alright. Solar panels extended, the Communitron extended, and we are ready to plan for our transfer maneuver. So we go into the maneuver tool, we choose Duna, and we press create. Easy peasy, right? Do you guys remember the times where it took to be an actual rocket scientist to do an interplanetary transfer? Well, I sure do. This thing just made it really simple. Alright. So our burn will be 1077 meters per second delta V, and we have roughly over 5,000, so I'm not overly concerned in us getting to Duna. The only thing that I've noticed that I cannot do is I cannot set the target as if my life depended on it. That's kind of weird. Okay, anyway, let's do the time warp. The node will be happening in 20-ish days, so I'd say we're lying pretty good overall. And after that nasty time warp, we are 1 minute away from the final burn. We just have to make sure that we point our craft maneuver prograde and make sure that we get ready for the burn, which will be happening in 40-ish seconds. Of course, this was a lot slower when I played it, but then again, there we go. Alright, 10 seconds to burn. We are oriented correctly for some nice visuals as well, and kicking the gas. Oh, look at that. Yeah, you don't see a vehicle, you know, shooting off from Earth orbit every day, right? Unless you are actually Elon Musk and sending up Teslas, well, into space, because you can. Alright, yeah. Well, I'm just kidding. That was an awesome mission. I still recall it today. The test flight of Falcon Heavy. That was amazing. Alright, now 200 meters per second to burn. We are getting out of Kerbin sphere of influence, and just to nail that, what? Alright, 4 meters per second to burn. Let's just do it at a very low thrust. There we go. We have our Duna encounter. Beautiful. Right. So now all we need to do is get over there, and yeah. So let's do create an alarm, and actually we don't need an alarm. The vehicle itself will stop on the SOI change. However, let's enjoy the departure, you know, cinematic. Bye bye, Kerbin. I always love these shots. I mean, I have probably well over 5,000 hours in KSP. And these shots still get me. I mean, there's just something about departing your ancestral home and embarking on an adventure somewhere into the far unknown. Yeah, especially if Duna has parallax textures. I cannot wait to see them and actually drive around them. I haven't done it to date, and I'm really curious to see. All right. Getting out of the Kerbin sphere of influence. There we go. Now let's create the SOI change alarm, which means we will get notified when we are supposed to be entering Duna sphere of influence. Right, so that's gonna be happening in quite a while, so might as well, you know, just accelerate the time. There we go. And this is I think this is actually a Hoffman transfer, because it's really fuel efficient. You start it and you just go starting to burn at one place and end up at another one. They essentially meet up, so yeah. I really am thankful that the devs included the maneuver node planning. I mean, I knew how to do them and set up manually, of course, but this gameplay-wise, this is so much easier. You don't actually need to be a rocket scientist to calculate that stuff out. Alright, now, as you can tell, we are entering the Duna's sphere of influence. I just want to fix my inclination and my incoming orbit. I want to basically come around Duna, and yeah. And I have enough delta V, so I'm probably gonna do a power insertion rather than the aero brake. I do have the heat shield in front, but I really don't want to risk it for biscuit. So aero captures are really tricky, and it takes a lot of calculations just to get them right. Yeah, so what I'm hoping for is basically getting to some 100-kilometer periapses, and when I reach the periapses, burn like hell, because we have more than 2,000 meters per second in the transfer stage, and that one is not gonna return to Kerbin anytime soon, so I think it's okay for us to expand it just to be able to enjoy the nice visuals. And there is Duna in the distance. I'm just trying to line up for a really, really nice maneuver, and then we shall be time warping until we get to Duna. Maybe actually we should do it a little bit more cinematically. Let's see. What do we have? Come on. Oh, no, we have the burn first. Right. Almost forgot. So first burn to secure us that beautiful transfer. Yeah, or actually periapses. Haven't had my morning coffee, guys, so sorry if I'm talking gibberish sometimes. Anyway, there we go. Beautiful. Now, the next burn is gonna be a big one, and it's gonna help us circularize at Duna. However, you can see 443 meters per second, so it's really not that big of a deal. It's quite simple. So okay, let's say 90 by 110. Yeah, 90 by 90. I think that's good enough. I want to make it as circular as possible because that will make my selection of the landing site quite easy. And you have to note that this is not my KSP career series. I don't have any relay satellites here, which means connectivity is a thing. I need to think about that while I'm doing these maneuvers, I am maintaining constantly a connection back to the KSC, because if I had relays, then it would be simple. I could just slap on the small short-range antenna, which is non-foldable, and enjoy that. Oh, look at that. Duna coming along. Here we go. Yeah, anyway, I just wanted to shut up for a second and let you guys enjoy the arrival. Okay, so as I said, this communotron helps us communicate with the KSC and the Deep Space Network back at Kerbin. So the moment we go into the Duna shadow, we won't be able to issue commands, because remember, this is remote vehicle. When I'm playing the career, usually I'm doing remote tech, which means that there is also a signal delay of, like, I think it's 1 or 2 minutes, which makes the game a lot more interesting and, you know, harder, so to say. Which is actually realistic. I think the signal, there is a delay when signal travels to Mars, and I think it's a couple of minutes, so you have to do and pre-plan everything. So as you can see now, I'm pre-planning my burn, my deorbit burn, once I get out of the Duna's shadow. And I'm actually fixing my staging because it's utter crap. Right, so with that thing being said, there we go. We're good. Wonderful. Now, I am increasing the altitude at which my radial chutes will be deploying, and I have a lot of drogue chutes, whose sole purpose is to descend our velocity entering Duna, and then we have the main chutes, which will hopefully open up and we will be able to land gently. Alright, that's the deorbit burn. We set the periapsis to the 24 kilometers, and while it's still technically an orbit, we will be passing through the atmospheric layers, meaning, like, okay, now we should extend the antenna. There we go. Now I need again have the connectivity. I open up the heat shield, and we should be entering soon. So I'm gonna give the rover a command, because I will need to fold up the antenna, otherwise it's gonna break into the atmosphere. I'm gonna have it follow always prograde. Follow orbit prograde until such time when you can actually do stuff. Everything else is prepared. I'd like to think that the chutes are already primed. You could, if I was using remote tech, I could queue them. But let's just say that they're primed to open up at the specific altitude. So here we are. Looks kind of cool. That's a big nose. I mean, reminds me of those, you know, hats that for picking rice fields. I don't know. Alright, so the heat shield, we're entering in. Good. We are already in the atmosphere. We're not in the thickest of it. But as you can tell, our periapsis is dropping significantly, meaning we are decelerating, and we are decelerating heavily. We are not in the thickest of it, so I guess the G-forces that we are experiencing are not too large. But they are climbing. Okay, 15, 14. Oh, don't flip. Don't you be flipping. Oh, antenna broken by aero forces. Well, we have a backup, and its entire thing is that it will engage once it's safe to deploy. So no worries there. Right. Okay, getting ready. As you can see, the chutes are primed. Why? What happened? Okay. Oh, altitude is wrong. Okay, increase. Increase the altitude on all of them. Come on. More. Pop up. Yes. Main chutes. Pop up. Good. Okay. Well, apparently the main chutes arrived and saved the day. However, I need some time to actually reorient, because this is actually hard. Okay. Yeah, okay. That's why I have thrusters. See? Sky crane for the win. Okay. We've popped the rest of the chutes, and that will help us equalize our craft. However, why am I nosediving this much? By 20 meters per second? Okay, that's not good. Come on, SAS! Fix me up, come on! And the thrusters. I'm working together with them, and I'm actually burning towards that valley, so yeah, I don't land in the Rockies. And I'm using my thrusters to actually orient myself a little bit. Chutes are helping to a degree, so yeah, they're slowing us down so that we don't hit very hard. Come on, there we go. There we go. Come on, up, 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 up. The only thing that worries me is the probe core is at the very nose of it. Come on. Oh, ouch. Okay, so what did blow up? The probe core blew up. Fortunately, the antenna now deploys. See, I have connectivity. And you might ask, GrunfWorks, how can you drive? You have the remote probe core completely gone. Well, because I have a small probe core here. See? Let's do the science shit. Okay, so the gravity scan, I am gonna send most of the data, but the data that I cannot send, I will return back to Kerbin for analysis. So all the sensors that we could do we actually have landed in the biome craters. I don't have the science from it, so I'm collecting as much as I can, and I'm sending as much as I can. What I cannot send, I will return. See? The material study and the mystery goo I will return, because those are the real samples, and we are supposed to be collecting the samples, right? All right. Okay. The Mars Ascent rocket is very wiggly. Yeah, it's really also very suggestive. Stop dangling it like that. Okay, by the way, guys, I would kindly like you to remind you, if you're enjoying the series, I mean, do smash that like button. It helps me out. I do need a certain amount of likes to actually continue the series, so I know that you guys are watching, are enjoying, and whatnot. So there we go. We are driving, and currently the only probe controlling this entire vehicle is in that tiny rocket. So once we actually send the rocket return, this rover will sadly be inoperable. Well, facts of life. Okay, and as you can see, this is the Parallax, and we have these rocks which make it kind of harder to drive, but we also have suspension, we have differential steering, so I'm not overly concerned. Look at us go. And I really like the colliders on this. These are just amazing. I mean, it makes Mars exploration that much harder. Now imagine driving this with a 10-second delay, or I don't know how, sorry, not 10-second, 10-minute delay. And then you're probably imagining what the actual Perseverance is doing. Yeah. All right. So, come on. Try to find your way across. Mind the big rocks. Yes. Okay, so I'm actually trying to get at the peak of this mountain, and then I will need to point the whole craft 90 degrees. We are already pointed 90 degrees, but it's just to make our rocket launch simpler. Right, so let's just go here, 90 degrees, pull on the brakes. See? Very nice. Okay, now we need to open up the cargo bay, take out the rocket, doing, see? And we have to be ready to blast it off. Okay, so let me just see, 90 degrees. I'm actually gonna lower that a little bit down so that the rocket is already angled and pointing, towards the east. What I want to do is I want to make sure that I'm controlling from here. I want to reset the camera so I have a good view over the whole launch vehicle. And then we'll be launching the vehicle. There we go. Look at us go. Yeah, it looks cool, right? So you will probably notice and ask, okay, GrunfWorks, where are your fuel lines? Turns out when you reload the craft, these fuel lines can get bogged down, and actually they got connected, creating a disbalance, meaning that I had to cut them loose. So we won't have as much, and this is the reason why I'm burning now 2 boosters rather than the main stage. So when those boosters burn out, we will be burning the main stage. So yeah, I had to do some adaptations on the fly, what can I tell you? However, I think that even with the main stage we would have more than enough delta V. And note one thing, I don't have control over this rocket. Yeah, except, cutting the burn. I have no control whatsoever because I don't have connectivity. Atmosphere would rip the antenna, so I kept it close, so I had everything preset and I set it to burn. So it shot up stopped burning, and now that we are out of the atmosphere, we popped out of the atmosphere and we opened up our antenna and we can do the burns because we have no longer the atmospheric drag that would rip off the antenna. So now we have to make sure to circularize and fix the orbital inclination at the same time so that we are equatorial. All right, let me just fix the maneuver node. Okay. That's gonna burn a pretty hefty amount of delta V, but I mean, we have 4.8 thousand delta V, it's more than enough. Right. Okay, the burn will be in 5, 4, 3. Oh, ike in the background for maximum views. Awesome. Alright, and we will be ditching the side boosters, and they will be returning back to Duna to crash and, you know, oh, what's this? Hold on. Correct? Ditch the side boosters. Bye-bye, and fix on the main stage. So, just for a small, almost post-mortem, it's not a post-mortem because the craft is still alive, what happened is that I didn't have equal amount of fuel in both tanks. There was a minor difference in the oxidizer, and that's why one of the engines stopped working, so I had to basically cut it off and just, you know, decouple. We'll still have more than enough, and as you can tell, our burn back to Kerbin is gonna happen in roughly 1 hour, but it's gonna take 598.3 meters per second, so it's not a whole lot, and we have 1.4 thousand. And I'm gonna use actually the remainder of that fuel to slow us down when we arrive at Kerbin. And for obviously corrections to make sure that we do get into the Kerbin's atmosphere, because we intend to, well, let's say it, partially aero brake. Okay, now the burn is 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, ignition. Yeah, it's a longer burn, but you have to imagine that this actually rocket is just half a meter wide. I mean, it's crazy. Yeah, a little bit over half meters, or actually 0.625, but that's okay. Alright, just a tiny burn to make sure that we do have our encounter. Come on, 3, 2, 1. Oh, almost there. Almost there. Good. Right. Fine. So now I'm actually gonna add another maneuver node to secure that we can actually that we can burn and get into the deep into the Kerbin's gravity well. I'm just gonna do some fiddling and I'll be back once I'm actually close to picking the right... Oh, it's consuming a hell of a lot amount of delta V. Wow. Look at that, 253, that's wrong. The reason why that is happening because I'm burning so close to Kerbin. So let's set the moon, yeah. And then we're gonna be first departing from Duna. Once we are in the interplanetary space, I'm going to create another maneuver node pretty close to where we are at the moment, which will consume only a fraction. You saw that the amount of delta V that needed us if we were burning at periapsis to get to Kerbin's atmosphere would be around 300 meters per second delta V. I can do better, meaning that if I set up a maneuver node somewhere about now, so let's say, I don't know, here, for the same burn, for the same trajectory, it's only going to take us a fraction because these interplanetary distances are huge and they make a huge difference. Look at that. So if you need to be very efficient on your burn, you should do it as early as possible. Usually it's a good idea to be out of the mother planet's gravity well, which was in our case was right now Duna. So if you're in an interplanetary space, there's less chance of anything interfering with it. So let's see. Okay, we want to be having Kerbin periapsis. I'm thinking of probably, let's say, to 200. I think that's good enough for the time being. We can still make a tiny correction when we are in the Kerbin sphere of influence, but look, 49 meters per second compared to the 300, it's by an order of magnitude less. And given our burn time will be, given our engine is pretty strong, I'm gonna reduce the total throttle so that it can be a way more sensitive, giving us a healthy burn time of 9 seconds. Usually if your burn time in KSP is 0.3 seconds, you'd really want to lower your thrust on your engine because there's no way you can be that precise. And this is actually a nice way. So you just reduce thrust on the engine and then introduce a maximum percentage of it. So we are burning, which is bringing our periapsis down. I'm hoping to some 200. Since I don't have the hold maneuver node autopilot, I'm doing this manually. Okay, 0.5, and now a tiny burn just to make sure that we have, come on, a little bit more, 245. I'm actually happy with that, and I'm gonna shut down the engine and throttle it to the max, just so I accidentally don't hit the key that would basically screw up on my return. And there we go. We are transferring back to Kerbin for the periapsis of 245 kilometers. I think that's great, and we have a total budget of, well, 943 meters per second, not counting the monoprops. If we count the monoprops, then it's significantly more. Right. Okay. Let's get into the Kerbin sphere of influence. There we go. And now we can do a tiny burn just to make sure that our periapsis should be in the atmosphere. So, all right. Let's see. Periapsis. I'm gonna burn retrograde. And if I burn retrograde, well, that's actually helping. It's a combination of a retrograde and radial in, so that's gonna be perfectly fine. Now, that thing being said, okay, so we are gonna be burning in 1 hour and 30 minutes, and we need to be burning 142 meters per second of delta V. We have 826, which is more than enough. So as soon as our periapsis drops down significantly enough, we're gonna be pretty happy about it. So there we go. Okay, 0.4, 1.7, okay, 38 periapsis, and this is gonna be marvelous. So let's go and enjoy the return to Kerbin. There we go. Yeah, awesome. I love these views. These are just amazing. Okay, so now what we want to do is at the periapsis, when we are roughly 120 kilometers up, what I want to do, I want to expel the rest amount of my delta V to slow us down, because we're going in pretty fast and we're going to be coming pretty hot. So I will need to fold in the antenna, and right now I'm kicking up the engine and just making sure that I do consume whatever delta V I can to reduce our orbital velocity so that we don't hit the atmosphere just as hard. Now, with that being said, okay, we have another 7 seconds to burn. Beautiful. And see, we have almost slowed us down to the point where we are almost like just in orbit. 2.6 thousand meters per second. Okay, just need to reorient myself, and there again burning the RCS. Okay, we are in the atmosphere, so quickly close, retract the antenna, ditch this, and oh, come on, ditch this, retract the antenna, and we are getting in. Good. The antenna didn't trip off, meaning that we are on a successful re-entry. Beautiful. Look at us go. Amazing. Oh, are we going sideways? Ooh, hold, orbit, retrograde. Yes. Whew. That almost turned out to be a whole new problem. Alright, getting into the atmosphere. I'm just checking my altitude, and I want to deploy my chutes, just not too early, so that the return doesn't take forever. Okay, drogue chutes engaged. Beautiful. And the main chute I'm gonna be engaging soon. Okay, let's cut the chutes. One chute cut. Come on. Cut the chute. There we go. Engage the main chute. And that one is pre-deployed. It's not going to deploy until 800 meters. There we go. And now we will gently descend down. We have 800 meters to go. Let's turn on the lights for that awesomeness. I mean, we did it, guys. We have successfully returned the Duna Sample return mission to Kerbin. All we need to do is just now, well, land and reap up the science and see how much we got. Once again, I'm gonna ask you to, if possible, do press that like button if you're enjoying the content. It helps me out a great deal. And let's see how much we got before we wrap it up for today's episode. There we go. Landed. Let's open up the antenna and say beep 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 beep. we have arrived. Yeah, alright, so let's check. A total of 1,600 science. So there you go, guys. A lot of science, and we can unlock everything. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.